I invested the last $500 in a startup when everyone was twiddling their thumbs. Today I am a millionaire. I still remember the smell of burned coffee in that rundown diner. It was February, cold as hell, and I was sitting at that cracked vinyl booth wondering how the hell I got there. My bank account had $537.22 in it. Rent was due. Utilities were late. I hadn't eaten a real meal in days. Just ramen, dollar store oatmeal, and black coffee. You know the look people give you when they think you're a loser? That pity with a touch of smugness? My brother gave me that look every time he saw me. He was the golden child. Nice house, big job, shiny Tesla. Me? I just left a job I hated, one I gave 6 years of my life to, because they laid off half the team without blinking. Everyone told me I was being stupid. Get a real job, stop chasing pipe dreams, you need to grow up. But I had one thing they didn't: desperation and nothing left to lose. That's when I got the call. It was Kyle, an old friend from college who once tried to pitch me a business idea over a beer pong table. I'd forgotten all about it. Back then, it sounded like a fantasy. An AI tool for small businesses that could automate their social media, emails, and even customer service. Think ChatGPT but stripped down and streamlined for mom-and-pop shops. He said, "We're going live in 30 days. MVP's built. But we're $5,000 short on server costs." Everyone bailed. I'm calling people who I think still believe in me. I didn't. Not fully. But something in his voice, maybe the desperation, made me pause. "I've got $500, I said before I even thought it through. That's all I can give." Literally. Kyle was silent. Then he said, "Deal. I'll put you in as a seed investor. 1% equity." 1%. It sounded like a joke. But it was something. And honestly, I had nothing else. I transferred the money. My last $500. I wish I could say I felt heroic. I didn't. I walked home in the cold and cried in the shower like a damn soap opera character. But the next morning, something felt different. I had nothing left to lose. I got a job washing dishes at night. During the day, I went back to freelancing, copywriting, website fixes, editing resumes. Scraped together rent, barely. All while wondering if Kyle's startup was even real. Then, 3 weeks later, everything changed. My phone buzzed at 2:43 a.m. "Bro. We just got our first customer. Small bakery in Seattle. She loves it." 2 hours later, another text. "Dude." She told her cousin. Who owns 3 cafes. By the end of the week, they had 14 paying customers. 2 weeks later, they had 50. I didn't sleep. I watched that dashboard like it was my heartbeat. Every new customer felt like a breath of fresh air in lungs that hadn't filled in years. Then came the phone call that flipped my world upside down. Kyle again. This time he sounded different. Panicked but excited. "We just got an email from a VC firm. They want to talk. They saw our growth rate and think we could scale." I sat on the edge of my bed, heart pounding. "Are you in?" he asked. I almost laughed. Bro, I gave you my last $500. I've been in." He chuckled. "Good. Because if this goes through, your 1% might be worth, well, way more than you think." "How much more?" I barely slept the night before the pitch. Not that I was doing the pitching, Kyle and his co-founder, Matt, were. But I was so keyed up, it felt like I was going into that boardroom myself. You ever have that gut feeling? Like the universe is holding its breath for you? That was me, lying on a stained futon with holes in the arms, staring at the cracked ceiling thinking this could actually be it. Kyle called me from San Francisco, voice shaking with adrenaline. "They're giving us 20 minutes. That's it. We're up against 3 other AI tools, but ours is the only one built for small business. That's our edge." I knew he was nervous. Kyle was always the big idea guy, but this was the first time someone with real money was watching. "You got this," I told him. "You know your stuff better than anyone. And if it goes to hell, I'll just start a taco truck with what's left of your laptop." He laughed, which was good. Because inside? I was terrified. That morning, I went to work at the diner. I was on dish shift. Hot water, soap, and clanking plates. Every 5 minutes I was checking my phone with wet, pruned fingers. Nothing. Then, 1:12 p.m. Kyle, dude. They're in $1.5 million seed round. Signed. I dropped a dish. It shattered. My manager yelled from across the kitchen, "You breaking stuff back there again?" I just stood there, hands dripping, staring at the screen like it was a hallucination. The next few weeks were a blur. I flew out to San Francisco for the first time in my life. The plane ticket? Covered by Kyle. First thing he did was pay me back that $500 tenfold, then handed me a check for $25,000. Consider this a thank you bonus. You believed. And that wasn't even the real money. Because here's the thing about early stage equity: when a company gets valued at $5 million and you own 1%, that's 50 grand on paper. But if they keep growing, and brother, they did, that number balloons real fast. Within 4 months, they had 10,000 monthly users. They signed a white label deal with a national chain of fitness franchises. And suddenly we were doing interviews, hiring staff, talking marketing plans. Kyle asked me to join the team full-time as a growth strategist. I said yes before he even finished the sentence. The dishwasher was now flying business class, sitting in meetings with execs, talking strategy, market penetration, churn rates, all that sexy startup lingo. And remember my brother? Mr. Tesla? He didn't even know. Until Thanksgiving. That's when everything flipped. He was showing off as usual, bragging about his portfolio, his new mountain bike, his second vacation home investment. Then he turned to me and said, with that smug smile, "So, how's freelance life? Still scraping together website gigs for beer money?" I smiled. "Oh, didn't I tell you?" I said, deadpan. "I invested in a startup back in February. They just hit a $20 million valuation. I'm on the board now." He froze, blinking like I slapped him. "Wait. You?" I shrugged. "Yup. Put in my last $500. Now I'm sitting on equity worth about $200,000. Might cash out early next year. We'll see." The room went quiet. I swear even the turkey stopped cooking for a second. And the look on my brother's face? Worth every damn ounce of struggle I'd endured. But that wasn't even close to the end. Because what happened next was something none of us saw coming. So there I was. Thanksgiving dinner, standing on the smoking remains of my brother's ego like a victorious gladiator. The man who once called me a perpetual underachiever was now staring at me like I'd grown 3 heads. But I wasn't even flexing yet. The real bombshell? That was still loading. Because a week after Thanksgiving, we got an email from a major player. I'm talking huge, a Fortune 500 tech firm whose name I won't say, but let's just say it rhymes with Schmamazon. They'd gotten wind of our startup through the VC grapevine and wanted to explore a strategic acquisition. Strategic acquisition. I don't care how calm and collected you think you are, those words hit different when you're still driving a beat-up Honda Civic and checking your checking account before you order takeout. Kyle forwarded the email to the team with one word, "Thoughts?" I replied immediately, I thought I was going to throw up, but other than that, feeling good. The offer on the table? $8 million for a controlling stake. Not a full buyout, but enough to give them influence, branding power, and early access to our proprietary tech. We'd still get to run operations. But something about it didn't sit right. See, I had been knee-deep in the user analytics for weeks. I knew we were onto something huge. Small businesses were onboarding at an insane rate. Word of mouth was exploding. And retention? 93% after 3 months. In SaaS, that's sorcery. I told Kyle, it's a good offer. But I think we're selling ourselves short. They see what we see. Maybe even more. But money talks. Especially when you're sitting in a tiny San Fran apartment with furniture you built from Craigslist parts and you've still got ramen in your pantry out of habit. Kyle was tempted. So was Matt. I get it. $8 million is hard to ignore. But here's where things got real. A week before the deadline to decide, one of our competitors, another AI tool, got bought for $30 million. 30. Freaking Million. The difference? Their UX was clunky, their onboarding sucked, and their customer base was 1/3 the size of ours. And they didn't even have a social media autopilot. That was the moment I knew. I pulled an all-nighter and built a full presentation, a deck breaking down why this acquisition offer was a golden cage. It looked sweet now, but it'd limit our growth, chain our product development to their priorities, and cap our valuation forever. I didn't sleep. I wore a hoodie that hadn't been washed in 2 weeks. I stood in front of Kyle and Matt in that tiny co-working space and said, "We're worth more. Way more. And I don't want to look back and say we sold the rocket ship for the price of a used jet ski." Kyle sat there, silent. Matt leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Then Kyle said, "Let's do it." I blinked. "Wait, what? Do what?" He grinned. "Let's turn it down. Let's go all in." They said no to $8 million. Just like that. And that's when things started moving at lightspeed. We hired. We scaled. We landed a partnership with Shopify. And suddenly we were onboarding 500 plus businesses a week. The graphs? They looked like ski jumps. And that 1% equity of mine? It was no longer worth $200,000. It was worth nearly $1 million. But then we hit a snag. A betrayal. A moment that nearly killed everything we'd built. And I didn't see it coming. Success changes people. You hear that all the time, right? But no one ever tells you it reveals them too. Things were going better than I ever imagined. Our platform, Sparkline, was everywhere: small businesses, Etsy shops, indie gyms, you name it. We were on Tech Today. We made 30 startups to watch. Kyle and I even spoke at a conference in New York and got a standing ovation. And just when I started to believe I'd finally made it, that's when the blade hit my back. It started with a missing signature. We were finalizing a Series A investment. $15 million. A monster round. Valuation had jumped to $16 million. My 1% was now worth $600,000, and if we stayed on track, we'd be at 9 figures by the following year. But the lead investor emailed me directly, odd, since I wasn't the CEO. "Hey," the message read, "why is your name not on the revised cap table?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" I forwarded the message to Kyle. No response. I texted Matt. Scene. The pit in my stomach started forming like a thundercloud. I pulled up the latest version of the investment documents and scanned the cap table line by line. My name was gone. Instead, there was a new line item: founder reserved shares, 2%, to be distributed. Distributed where? My heart started racing. This wasn't a clerical error. This was a rewrite. And someone had gone in and ghosted me out of the equity pool. I called Kyle. Straight to voicemail. I called Matt. "Hey man," he answered, all casual. "Busy day, what's up?" I cut right through it. "Why the hell is my name missing from the cap table?" Silence. Then a breath. "Look, it's complicated." "No. It's not," I snapped. I invested. I built growth strategy. I've worked full-time for 9 months. You think I don't deserve my 1%? Matt's voice dropped. We talked to legal. The original agreement wasn't signed through a formal safe note. It's not binding. I saw red. Are you serious right now? You're screwing me out of my shares because the paper trail isn't clean enough? It's not personal, he said, with all the empathy of a vending machine. We're just protecting the company. That's when I knew it wasn't a glitch. It was a heist. These two guys, who I thought were my friends, were trying to cut me out now that the real money was coming in. I had a decision to make. I could walk away, accept that I got played, and try to rebuild. Or I could fight. And buddy, I fought. I hired a lawyer. She was a beast. Startup litigation was her specialty. She combed through every Slack message, every email, every check I'd written, every project file I owned. She found receipts that proved I wasn't just an early believer, I was a co-founding contributor. And then we hit them with the letter. Cease and desist. Equity claim. Intend to sue. Suddenly, Kyle wasn't dodging my calls anymore. Suddenly, Matt was misquoted. They wanted to settle. Quietly. Cheaply. They offered me a bonus $75,000 and a vague advisory title. I told them to shove it. Then I leaked the story to a friend in tech media. You should have seen the article. Startup darling faces internal turmoil, investors squeezed out after early contribution. The story caught fire. The comments section was brutal. Kyle called me, voice shaking. This is going to ruin us. I said, good. 2 days later, I got a new offer. 1% restored. Plus 0.5% more. Plus a formal advisor contract with a 6-figure salary. And a public apology. I didn't even smile. I just said, put it in writing. 3 weeks later, we signed. And that was the moment I realized, success doesn't just attract attention. It attracts leeches. But I wasn't just some dumb dreamer with $500 anymore. I was a business shark now. And I had teeth. You ever walk into a room and feel like you flipped the balance of power? 6 months after that legal firestorm, I did just that. In a custom suit tailored, not off the rack. Rolex peeking from under the cuff. Clean cut. Calm. Dangerous. We were hosting Sparkline's 1-year anniversary party at a downtown rooftop in San Francisco. Neon lights, thumping music, champagne towers. The kind of event I used to sneak into for free food when I was broke. Now, I was one of the names on the banner. The company had grown beyond what we imagined, tens of thousands of businesses, a partnership with Stripe, and we were on the verge of launching a mobile app that would completely change how local businesses operated. And my 1.5% equity? Valued at over $1.2 million. Not theoretical. Not maybe someday. Real. But the money wasn't even the best part. You want to know what was? My brother was there. Yeah. That brother. He showed up uninvited, turns out someone on the guest list brought him as a +1. Still flashing his Tesla keys, still acting like the center of the universe. Until he saw me standing there talking to the press. I caught the exact moment his smile froze. He came over, champagne in hand, trying to act casual. Damn, he said, looking around. This is impressive. You really made it, huh? I just nodded. Yeah, I guess so. He sipped his drink. You hiring? It took everything in me not to burst out laughing. But I played it cool. Honestly, I said, we've got a pretty solid team. Looking for people with a bit more long-term vision, you know? He laughed, but his eyes were hollow. And in that moment, I realized something. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. All my life I'd been chasing approval from family, from employers, from people who thought they were better than me. But standing on that rooftop, with the city glowing behind me, I finally saw it for what it was. They never had power over me. I gave it to them. And now, I was taking it back. The next day, I walked into a meeting with our lawyers and accountants. I had one request. I want to cash out 30% of my shares. They looked surprised. You sure? We're trending toward unicorn territory. I smiled. I'm sure. I just want to buy a house. With cash. A week later, I did. 3 stories. Ocean view. Home gym. Office space. And a wraparound porch for those quiet mornings with coffee, where you reflect on how far you've come. I didn't throw a big housewarming. Just invited a few real friends, the ones who were there when I had nothing. We drank cheap beer on expensive furniture and laughed until sunrise. And as the sun came up, I stepped outside, barefoot on cool stone, and thought about that February morning. That cracked vinyl booth. That $500. It wasn't luck. It was conviction. Because when you have nothing, you're free to risk everything. And when everyone else was twiddling their thumbs? I bet on something no one believed in. Myself. That's it. That's the story of how $500 turned into $1.2 million. Of how desperation became power. Of how a broke nobody became the guy everyone suddenly remembered when the money rolled in. And if you're wondering whether I regret giving Kyle that $500, hell no. But I'll never let someone write me out of my own story again. Ever. You want a takeaway? Here it is. The world won't believe in you until you win. So start anyway.